It's been a long day, I know, and I'm just before lunch, so this is like one of the worst sessions to come on. So the year was 1885. There was the Burmese War happening. There was Britain and Russia about to get into a war. There was a lot of tension. People in Germany were building the first Mercedes car. This was the first Benz. They also made the first motorbike with internal combustion engine. And in India, my country, the Indian National Congress was formed, which eventually led to this entire region getting rid of the British. Also in 1885, there was a young boy born in my city. I'm from Calcutta, and there was a young boy born there who eventually, at the age of 14, came to Nepal because his dad got a transfer. And at the age of 14, he was literally given the keys to the armory because the person who was in charge was murdered. Now, I want to introduce you to this piece of weaponry. It's called the Martini Henry rifle. The Martini Henry rifle, if you notice, does not have any cartridge. There is no place where you put bullets. You have to individually load this rifle. And this was a rifle that was being used by the British and other armies at that point in time. These were the cartridges that went into this rifle. And then this was the first machine gun that was made. It was called the Gardner gun. This was very cutting edge at the time. Ironically, at that point in time, Britain and Nepal were in very good relations because Nepal was having quarrels with all the other countries around it. But Britain and Nepal were kind of tight. They were okay. They were cool. However, Britain did not understand or did not treat Nepal like an ally that it deserved to be treated. So all the defective gun pieces, all the defective bullets were sent to Nepal. And so there was like an oversupply of bullets, and there was not enough guns. So remember that 14-year-old kid that I was talking about? He made his own gun. He named it after his father. His name was the gun was called the Bira gun. Now the interesting engineering marvel that is involved in the Bira gun is that it was not purchased from the British. However, it was based completely on the Gardner gun. Yet it was more effective and definitely more powerful and definitely had much more firepower. This is the contraption that he made after studying the technical specs of the Gardner gun and combining it with the Martini rifle and the bullets of the Martini rifle. This gentleman was Gehendra Shamsher Bahadur Rana. I believe you should know him. He is part of your history. He was also, some claim, to be the first scientist of this country. He did a lot of innovation. He imported all these random cars, and he completely disassembled them and tried to reassemble the cars, and he even introduced electricity, or the concept of hydroelectric power, as far away as that point in time. So Nepal is not new to innovation. My topic for today is innovation. I'm going to be really honest with you. Till last night, I was going to deliver a very, very different presentation. But then I realized after the meet and greet last night that most entrepreneurs just want a to-do list. They want a list, because there was a gentleman who came up to me and he asked me, how do I do this? And he had a very targeted question. So I could either stand here and give you all funda about what innovation is and how the entire structure and the entire process of startup goes, or I can just give you the tips straight away on the face. Which one do you prefer, the former or the latter? The latter? Yeah? Okay. So innovation. Innovation is based on three things. Firstly, real innovation takes time. It is not something that can happen overnight. Second, it requires some really deep thought. It's not something that you can just have a dream about at night and the next day it's done. No, that's not how it works. And thirdly, innovation is based on a foundation of failure. If you're not used to failing, you can't innovate. If you're not used to failing, as one of the speakers said earlier, you can't be an entrepreneur. You cannot be scared of failing at all. So the question that most people ask is, can there be a framework for innovation? Is there a way you can guarantee that you can be an innovative company as a startup? Not really, there is not a guarantee of anything. But there is definitely a framework which reduces your rate of failure, the least rate of failure. It's based on three things. It's predicated on three things: configuration, offering, and experience. These are three pillars. Some of the nice folks at Deloitte came up with this framework about a decade ago, and they have constantly proven that this scientifically works after all the data. So I'm going to start off with configuration. Configuration, the first thing about configuration is, what is your profit model? What are you trying to sell? And how are you going to make money? I'll give you an example. Gillette. Gillette used to have, I don't know, this particular generation, I'm sure, this is quite the average age is at least, I hope, below 50 right now. So you guys have never seen, but there was a time when you had to buy razors and you had to actually sharpen the razors. There was no concept of use and throw of razors at all. You had to sharpen it, also known as Ustra. So before the onset of, and after Ustra as well, there was just razors and they had to be sharpened, the blades had to be sharpened. Now Gillette went into the profit model and they said, you know what, the only thing that is constant is going to be the base. You have to use and throw the razors, and their profits shot up. Before I get to the second aspect, and I know this is before lunch, so I can do this right now, since I don't want it to be a dead audience, I want each of you to stand up. Stand up. And I want you to do a complete switch around. So don't be sitting where you were sitting. Don't be sitting with the people that you were sitting with. I will give you exactly 1 minute to do this. Hurry up. Everyone, just move around. Just move to a different spot. Do not sit with someone who you already know. Trust me, this is part of the talk. You have to sit next to someone who you don't know at all. Introduce yourself to them. Come on, come on, come on. There's not enough time. I only have 13 minutes left and it's a long talk. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Go, go, go. In the US, this is called a Chinese fire drill. I don't know why, but it's called a Chinese fire drill. Complete chaos. You should not be sitting next to someone. You can't be sitting alone either. That's cheating. You have to sit next to a stranger. Done? Come on, come on, come on. This is also to wake you up because I'm assuming that you all are already so tired and bored. So hopefully you're awake now. You're also currently outside your comfort zone. As an entrepreneur, as a person in the startup ecosystem, you're supposed to be outside your comfort zone. This is what happened right now. This is you actually. This is you next to the people that you came here with. This is you with people that you know, sitting in this hall very comfortably, very smug, having a good time, perhaps exchanging jokes, looking at each other and smiling. Sure. This new format that you've got into is the possible format. The person that you're sitting next to, you don't know. But that person also has 4 or 5 friends, perhaps here, perhaps in the country, perhaps anywhere in the world. So what you have now effectively done is that you have opened up the possibility of knowing that person's friends group. That is what networking is about. Nepal has the benefit of being a tourist destination. I noticed this yesterday and day before. A very dear friend of mine took me to Thamel. Then she took me and she told me about Pokhara. And I saw the entire different kinds of countries that were represented in these places. This is potential networks for every entrepreneur in this city. Not every city has this benefit. Calcutta definitely doesn't have this benefit at all. There are a lot of people people coming from abroad from different countries who come to Calcutta, but it's such a huge city that they are not that approachable. I went to that place in Thamel called OR2K, I think. OR2K. And it only had people from different nationalities. And for once, I did not find a single Indian there. It was like a buffet, literally. I could just walk around and just connect with people from all over the world. That is what networking is about. That is what, as a startup entrepreneur or any kind of entrepreneur, you have to base yourself in such a way, you have to place yourself in such a way that you can actually network with random people like you are going to be doing right now. And that is what you should be doing. You should exchange cards, and hopefully by the end of this entire conference, whoever you're sitting next to right now, hopefully a stranger, you will actually exchange some meaningful information with. Maybe you will get an insight. Maybe you will give them an insight. Maybe you will add each other on LinkedIn. Maybe that person will lead to you getting a Series A funding tomorrow. You never know. You know, when you're traveling, I hate to travel with people around me. Like, even if I'm traveling with friends, I usually get a seat alone because you know what? The person who comes and sits next to you could potentially change your life. It's called serendipitous availability. I believe in serendipity a lot. I believe that there is nothing called coincidence, there's only serendipity. The person who is sitting next to you in an aeroplane is meant to sit next to you in an aeroplane. A person who's sitting next to you in a bus or a train is meant to. You just have to reach out and understand why that person is meant to. And of course, events like these, where you will find people from the same ecosystem who will have the same ideas and concepts like you will, and hopefully you will create the ecosystem that he was talking about earlier. Sharing of ideas, sharing of thoughts, sharing of resources. Structure. Alignment of talent and assets is a very important thing in any startup. Have you heard of WordPress? Yes? No? Hello? Yes? Yes? WordPress does not have an office. 30% of the internet is WordPress. It does not have an office. Everybody in WordPress works from home. There is no physical infrastructure involved. To be able to pull that off, you need to have alignment in the organization. How are these people being able to run such a massive exercise and operation without having a physical office? That is what a startup should learn from a company like WordPress. Process, again, you need to have a signature or superior method so that people can differentiate your product from the rest. I had this wonderful juice yesterday at the meet and greet. I forgot the name. Full. Incredible. I was expecting it to be as sweet as Fruity of Slice. My God, it was absolutely wondrous. In fact, I'm supposed to meet him, I guess, today. I'm actually considering taking him to India because India does not have such an organic juice line. They do have a couple, but they don't taste like this. This is some authentic stuff. So that's his differentiator, that's his USP. I immediately get onto it. I'm already his fan. And for some people, I think some people were saying yesterday, I'm probably his mascot as well. Zara does this really well. Zara absolutely revolutionized the fashion industry. How? Because you can immediately take something from a sketch to production in a couple of weeks, which was unheard of in the fashion industry before this. Toyota introduced the entire concept of lean manufacturing, lean process, which now people talk about lean startups. Steve Blank, you must have heard the entire concept of the business model canvas and creating a lean startup. It was all branched off from the thought process and the ideology of the engineers in Toyota. When they said, you know what, we can make a car, but it need not be a bulky process. Let's create a lean manufacturing process where we can actually do this swiftly, which will reduce our costing and increase our quality. And that became their USP compared to any of the American car companies. So now we're done with configuration. Let's talk about offering. Tesla has managed to totally overturn an industry which is actually more than 100 years old. You saw the first car earlier, 1885. It's definitely more than 100 years old. They have absolutely overturned the concept of a car. And in the next 3 or 4 years, they will disrupt the entire whatever's left of the industry. If you have a great idea and you figure out a good way to do it, and you are one of the first or the first mover in the market, always remember that the second mover gets the cheese. Look at Facebook. Any of these companies, the second mouse gets the cheese, right? The first mouse gets stuck in the mousetrap. The second mouse is just roaming about, just seeing the mousetrap is shut, but the cheese is untouched because that poor bloke died, so he goes and eats the cheese. Don't make anybody a second mover. The moment you find some traction, if your idea is strong enough, and if you have a small market, open source it. Share it with the entire ecosystem. You will be creating competition, yes, but at the same time, you will be increasing your own market share, which will help you in reducing your advertising costs. Your penetration costs into geographies will reduce. Dyson, have you guys heard of Dyson? They make vacuum cleaners, very, very beautiful vacuum cleaners. It's like the Mercedes of vacuum cleaners. So this guy, 5,000 prototypes, 15 years, just for one bagless vacuum cleaner. There's no bag in a Dyson vacuum cleaner. And it looks like a piece of art. It looks like something you need, it's like a decoration piece. It's not something that you would assume to be a vacuum cleaner. That is their differentiation. They just recently launched in India, and it's very, very difficult not to go online and buy the entire product range. It's that beautiful looking, even though I don't need a vacuum cleaner. It's just very beautiful. This guy is Aristotle. Aristotle, the philosopher. So he had a very interesting insight back in the day before this entire startup scene started, which we can learn a lot from. It's creating a product system. It's creating complementary products and services around your product. And why is that? Because he said the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, which means that the whole is equal to the sum of its parts plus the sum of all possible interactions between its parts. It means that your product becomes more valuable the moment it is tied in with complementary services. I'll give you an example. Have you heard of Firefox? It's a browser. I hope you have. Firefox has this wonderful open source community where developers can go and create add-ons for Firefox. Chrome does as well. Immediately, a person like me would definitely prefer a Firefox or a Chrome over a pre-shipped Internet Explorer, definitely not Internet Edge, and a Safari, because Firefox just has better features, better options, because they have so many complementary services and products that come with it. That was with offering. And finally, we come to experience. I have 2 minutes left, so I'm going to hurry this up. Have you heard of Zappos? Tony Hsieh, Las Vegas. Like what these guys are doing here in Nepal, that guy did for Las Vegas. He created an entire ecosystem of startups in Las Vegas. That's not an easy thing to do. It's a city where everybody goes for distractions. It's very difficult to get a city which is created for distractions to focus on business and entrepreneurship, which he's done by creating this company. This company sells shoes, wonderful shoes. They send you like 10 pairs, you choose whichever one you want, give it back. The one thing about them is that if you have an issue and you call them, they will not hang up the phone till your problem is sorted at all. So they're creating that customer service level that you will never be able to use anybody else, any other company's products apart from Zappos. That is something worth learning for any startup. You give the customer an experience that they don't consider anybody else at all. Same with Men's Warehouse. I used to get suits when I was in the US from Men's Warehouse. Now I've come back to India, sadly, because people here charge for ironing of suits and jackets. They don't, ever. If you buy it from them, free ironing for the rest of your life. So you're creating a support and you're enhancing the entire experience of the product so that a person, a customer, does not move away from your brand at all. Intel Inside. It's become a brand. So now the next thing, of course, is brand. You have to create a brand. Intel Inside is so powerful that you see any machine which says Intel Inside, you immediately start trusting it. Yes or no? Yes or no? Do you think the same way about AMD? No, you don't. If there's Intel Inside, you know that this is a sorted product. In fact, the brand that is carrying the sticker becomes more legitimate because it says Intel Inside. That's called branding. There is another very prominent example of branding. This gentleman. He's a larger-than-life character. He's built companies. All his companies and businesses are so aligned. They stand for the values that he stands for, which is being different and spicing it up. If you do a Google search right now, if you see some of his pictures of the kind of life he leads, trust me, he definitely spices it up. But that's what Virgin as a brand is. And he is the brand. So brand is absolutely, completely aligned with what the owner's vision of life is. And there is complete consistency. Any brand, any startup should always have consistency. Customer engagement. How many of you heard of World of Warcraft? Come on. World of Warcraft? Come on, I'm expecting more hands. Come on, it's a game, yeah. Guys, girls, Blizzard Entertainment. So what they've done is they've created this wonderful ecosystem within this game that you become a loyal customer for life. They don't let you leave the platform. There is so much of interactivity and interaction happening within the game that you will never want to leave. Something similar is happening right now with, I don't know if you've heard of PUBG. So my office productivity has gone down by 30% since that godforsaken game was launched. So what I've done now is that I just take their phones away, or I just like confiscate them for the rest of the day if I see anybody opening PUBG in office. It actually is kind of addictive. I tried it the other day. But whatever, I mean, that's what it is. It's created such a beautiful ecosystem and infrastructure of, pathways within the game and interactions with other real people that you don't want to leave the game. You become a loyal customer. So let's sum it up. Configuration, offering, experience. This is when you guys should take out your phones and take the pictures, because this is an easier slide. Done? Okay, cool. Are you taking my picture as well? Am I looking thin? Who's this guy? What a legend, right? Do you guys know this guy? I know him. Absolute legend. I just got to know about him yesterday, actually. I'm trying to act smart right now. Just last night, I got to know about this guy at the mixer. And then I had to redo my entire presentation just because of this one guy. Let's try the model on this guy. What did he do? Profit model. He actually got used computers from developed nations. He didn't go for expensive equipment. He just told the developed nations, because I was in the US, I know how they waste. A perfectly running machine has to go to the garbage. That's not fair. Those machines can do wonders in a developing nation. So all he did was he raised awareness, used his network, by the way, his network while he was studying there, and his network in places that he went to in Nepal, where there are foreigners who are coming from all over the world for, Everest Base Camp and stuff. They pulled in, they sent the computers from there for super cheap. His awareness campaigns through networking abroad brought him all the materials that he needed to. Then he started training the teachers online. They were not trained, teachers were not trained. He used these computers to start teaching them. Teachers then started connecting to the students systematically. There was issues with connectivity in the mountains. Sent an email to BBC, got the entire download from them. They said, you can actually make handmade dish antennas and put them at different parts of the forest on the mountains, and they will relay the signal from Pokhara to the villages. He managed to actually get funding for the students to be able to take these classes and the teachers' salaries through his network effect, through the volunteers, because his cause was so much larger that people actually wanted to participate. The mini dish antennas were actually set up by volunteers who were coming here for trekking camps from all over the world. Service was now immaculate after all these glitches were taken care of, so they could actually learn without any issues. His global networks continue to give him press coverage, and this channel becomes stronger and stronger. He's won global recognition, as you all might know. So that is the brand. Just like Richard Branson, he's the Richard Branson of the social entrepreneurship space in Nepal. And finally, classes continue. He's managed to connect yak farmers to the platform, and he's connecting a lot of small-scale industries to this platform now who are learning how to make their work better. He's connected, he's created the National Innovation Center, and there is regular groups of checking who come, who still volunteer, who continue to propel his vision forward. I don't know about anything else. I think he deserves a hand. Yeah? Clap? No? I would like to end with this quote. This quote is from my favorite book. It's called The Fountainhead. As an entrepreneur, as a startup, you will always have difficulties. This gentleman earlier said that you should never give up. You will have failures and everything. This is one quote that has stuck with me throughout my life so far and continues to. I feel that this is something that will propel you, or at least give you the inspiration to move forward, despite any opposition forces, despite anything coming in your way, because it's not a question of who's going to let you, it's the question of who's going to stop you. Thank you.